Welcome back to Comic Related's YouTube channel, everybody. I am Brant Fowler, back with you for some more New York Comic Con news. There was a Justice League Throne of Atlantis panel for the next animated feature coming from DC and Warner Brothers Home Entertainment. Direct-to-home release, obviously. Justice League Throne of Atlantis. The panel held the Aquaman voice cast, Matt Lanter, who also voiced Anakin Skywalker in Star Wars The Clone Wars, producer James Tucker, screenwriter Heath Corson, character designer Phil Barassa, and veteran casting and voice director Andrea Romano. And as the panel began, the first question was, why wasn't Aquaman in Justice League War, which was a straight adaptation of Geoff Johns and Jim Lee's New 52 Justice League first arc. And the reason being was so that he could do this particular feature, Justice League Throne of Atlantis, is an origin story for Aquaman, and if they had included him in Justice League War, they wouldn't have been able to tell the story they wanted to tell in Throne of Atlantis. So that is why he was omitted. They did go with the New 52 design for this particular Aquaman because it was simplistic and lend itself to animation. They talk about the interconnectivity between the DC-based animated features, and he says the end of this movie definitely teases the next movie. Romano shared her thoughts on Rosario Dawson voicing Wonder Woman for the first time in Throne of Atlantis, calling her a fan of this world and a fan of animation and comic books, and they've been looking for something for her, and this was it. There's absolutely an intent to bring as many cast members as they could together. They wanted to get Shamar Moore to return as Cyborg, but it was 3 months they tried to get him, but the schedule was crazy, so they had to move on to another one. 10 months later, agent reached out. Shamar's available again, and Romano said she re-recorded with Moore because the film's creative team, they wanted that continuity from Justice League War. And it was heartbreaking for her to recast the role, but he did nothing wrong, but they wanted to keep that continuity. So she was asked if they ever record in a group, and she says that's her preferred way of recording, with the ensemble recording, but obviously because of schedules and everything, that's not always possible. Lanter, who voices Aquaman, says this is an origin story, and for him coming into it, it's about figuring it out who Arthur Curry is, rather than being a superhero. This is kind of his journey. They showed a clip to the audience as Aquaman or Arthur Curry is burying his father, and so on and so forth. I don't want to get too much away. It moved on to a Q&A portion for the audience to ask. They asked Lanter how he felt about voicing Aquaman, and he said it's amazing. When somebody walks up to you and says, "Do you want to be a superhero?" You just say, "Well, yeah." And he was also asked later on how it differed from voicing Anakin Skywalker, and he said they had a lot of similarities. They had this power and responsibility on them, so it was very similar in that way. The cast and crew were also asked if there would be a true Bat Family movie featuring Batman and a variety of his supporting characters, and they said they'd love to do that. If it happens, cool. They were also asked if more characters from Young Justice would be appearing in DC Animated, and Tucker answered that if Young Justice were to come back in any way, shape, or form, that it would have to be Brandon Vietti and Greg Weisman on it. They said they're not touching it. They're not saying anything's going to happen, but if it did, it would be with those creators, which will make fans very happy, I'm sure. Hopefully something does come, but if, like they said, if it does, it definitely will be Weisman and Vietti, so that's awesome. They did say that they would be continuing to make features based on both pre-New 52 and New 52 content, just like they did Son of Batman, based on the Batman and Son storyline pre-New 52. Asked why Aquaman was chosen for this focus, they talked about his name recognition, and they wanted people to have know the name as a punchline and everything. So it was a interesting revelation here too. Was this particular movie, Justice League Throne of Atlantis, was originally rated R, and they said they won't say why. It wasn't for violence. And Tucker joked that if you wanted to see the real cut, meet him outside, out back after the panel. there was a question about if there would ever be a Justice League International feature, and Heath Corson, who wrote both, I believe, Justice League War and Throne of Atlantis, commented that that's all he wants to do in the world. That was the first ever thing that he pitched to Warner Brothers, and maybe someday they'll listen to him. He wanted to voice cast Alec Baldwin as the character of Maxwell Lord. So, we'll have to see what happens. But that pretty much wraps it up. Romano did talk about the voice casting for Batman, and how when she reads a script that contains Batman, all she hears is Kevin Conroy's voice, and that it's very difficult for her to imagine somebody else in that role. It doesn't, prohibit her from being able to cast, but it is the voice that she hears, and I think that's fair to say that that's the voice we all hear, is Kevin Conroy from the Batman the Animated Series and the Justice League series. He is the voice of Batman. And just a few more questions, but that was pretty much the gist of the. I don't know why I said jest or just. That's the gist of the Justice League Throne of Atlantis panel, and that release is coming up early next year, I believe. So stay tuned for more details on that. I'm sure clips will be available very soon, and we'll have those up on comicrelated.com, where you can find even more New York Comic Con news. And stay tuned to the YouTube channel as well for even more news. Head over to comicfrontline.com, and their YouTube channel will all be covering New York Comic Con throughout the duration and into next week as well, with all the news that is coming out. And until next time, thanks for watching, and remember, if it's comic related, you'll find it here.